Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in our chats with Emily as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Johnson edition and we now turn to poem 288, I'm Nobody, Who Are You? Now, there are many that just love this as their favorite Emily poem. Certainly in 303 this is a very famous poem because of our love of what? Odysseus and his exchange with the Cyclops Polyphemus in Odyssey 9, and of course the Cyclops asks Odysseus, who are you? And of course every 7th grader loves the story, I'm nobody. Of course later when Polyphemus is blinded he will scream, nobody blinded me, nobody blinded me. Now I think that this poem has often been I almost said misunderstood, but it's almost like it's overlooked at times, as if Emily is playing around with some very superficial kinds of gaming. That is to say, I'm a nobody, but at least I'm not the nobody that you're not. Now, if we step away just for a second, though, and consider, that's Socrates' whole argument in Plato's Apology. In other words, he says, the one thing I know is I don't know anything, which is probably at least a whole lot better than you guys that think you know things and you don't know anything. So it's a fascinating poem. By the way, notice that the N of nobody is capitalized. Notice the exclamation point as well. Now, this is an interesting poem in terms of its publishing as well. It was published the year actually that Lincoln became president, 1861. Johnson makes an observation in a footnote that I think could be of some help as well. The Springfield Daily Republican of 23rd January 1858 published a poem by Charles McGee titled, quote, Little Nobody, end quote, containing the lines, quote, who would be a somebody, nobody am I, the McGee offering. Now it is possible that Emily, in this poem, is somehow gaining some inspiration from this earlier verse. And in some ways, Bull's Republican, as we've said already, was the standard newspaper in the Dickinson household. The publishing of this one will happen in March of 1891, and it was in fact entitled Nobody. So as we turn now to our study, we're going to work from a few assumptions. Hopefully you've been studying and reading along with us at learnstrong.net, down that left-hand side, again, Chats with Emily, our playlist. I'm really hopeful that you've already worked through our set of introductory comments as well as our preceding 286 poems. Why do I say that? Because, as we've said so regularly, often Emily's poems are kind of taken out and a few are anthologized or a few are read. When you do the project that we are doing, that is to say, just pick up the Johnson edition, start with poem 1 and read all the way through. When you get to this poem 288, you find yourself already having heard a lot of the tone that will be played off here. And of course, Emily is always looking for some sense of recognition, respect, and here we're going to play the game all over again, only there's a defiance in this poem that's quite remarkable. We'll see it. Our hope is that you've already worked through especially the previous 280s. We just finished with 287, a clock stopped. Now, the poem here, many see it as a poem about publishing and notoriety. Emily actually once said, quote, I would as soon undress in public as to give my poems to the world, end quote. Now, there's a lot of debate. One of the reasons we call our conversations here Chats with Emily is this would be one of the first conversations if we could actually sit down with Emily and have a real conversation, whether she was behind a door at the top of the stairs or whatever. Hey, what was your real feelings about publishing and trying to publish? It is clear what her father thought about it. It is clear that she felt at times conflicted about whether she should let her stuff out or not. It is true politically that Emily, as a woman and an unmarried young woman, was in many ways politically a nobody. But it isn't clear at all that Emily really thought of herself as nobody. And again, how she plays that game, I think, will come down to our interpretation in many ways of this poem. Let's just enjoy the poem. Notice the exclamation points, by the way. I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? Then there's a pair of us. Don't tell. They'll advertise, you know. How dreary to be somebody. How public, like a frog, to tell one's name the livelong June to an admiring bog. Now the sing-songy effect of the poem, the rhythm of the poem, will I think hide some really powerful things that are going on here. First of all, again, back to the Odyssey. I think Emily's channeling a lot of Greek literature in this poem. I've already mentioned, notice Homer as well as Plato. I'm nobody, she says. And then right away, by the way, this takes us back to the previous poem, 287. Remember when she pointed out that death is nothing, that no, and here we are now with nobody. Of course, we've seen this already in poems 35 and 62. And we're going to see this in 12 poems, this word nobody. And when we get to poem 1465, it's going to be shouts for joy to nobody. I'm nobody, she says. And then she'll ask it, who are you? By the way, that's the only time that phrase, who are you, gets used in all of her poetry. Notice right away the feeling of some kind of reaching out to you, the reader. We saw this in our study of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. We call that series Talks with Walt. And you'll remember that when we did, any number of titles come to mind. Ferry comes to mind right away, right? Brooklyn Ferry comes to mind, where he literally communicates directly with you, the reader, somehow assuming that he knows that you guys are going to be someday way in the future reading his stuff. It's as if it's an intimate kind of thing, like, who are you? I'll tell you who I am. But note the irony, just like Odysseus. To say you're nobody means what? Right? In what way are you nobody? She doesn't go into any detail. By the way, notice she doesn't say I'm a nobody. She says I'm nobody. And then who are you? And then almost tongue-in-cheek, are you dash nobody dash two? In other words, it's almost as if she's looking for a pal. Right? She's looking for somebody to identify with. And then she'll say it in line 3. Then, hey, if we're both nobodies, that makes us a pair. And now all of a sudden, we're potentially somebody. Of course, the ironies of this poem abound, right? And then she'll say it, don't tell. We're going to see this in 289, this don't tell phrase. Don't tell, exclamation point. They'd advertise, you know. Now, this word advertise is interesting. In an early version, it was actually banish. It wasn't advertise, which I find interesting as well. They'd advertise, In other words, there's something subversive about what's going on here, in the same way that Odysseus is subversive to Polyphemus when he lets Polyphemus know that he's nobody, right? In other words, there's a game that's being played here, and it has to do with naming, and of course we're going to get to naming here in a second. And then she'll pause, and notice it's interesting how she kind of goes from this investigative stance to a more contemptible stance, a more acrimonious or even bellicose stance. How dreary to be somebody. The only other use of how dreary is poem 231. How dreary to be somebody, exclamation point. By the way, this whole thing of in kind of joining in, and the use of the word know at this point, along with obviously the play from the Greek of nobody. I find it fascinating. In other words, it's almost like you're supposed to make the connection of the two spellings of nobody, N-O-B-O-D-Y and K-N-O-W-N-O-B-Y, right? That notion of nobody is I know something you don't know, and I think that's what is sitting beneath this this project. How dreary, she says, to be somebody, right? I don't want to be a somebody. How public, and then a bizarre simile, like a frog. Of course, it's going to rhyme with bog, which will be nice. There's been some renderings of class understandings here, and maybe even with bog, some recognition of Irish lower class. I'm going to leave that to you guys to run that to ground. But it is interesting how she'll say, how dreary to be somebody. I don't want to be known. I don't want to be recognized. How public, like a frog. Now, in what ways is a frog public? Well, he croaks. Now, we're going to see frog when we meet poems 1359, and that one will run like this. The long sigh of the frog upon a summer's day enacts intoxication upon the reverie, but his receding swell substantiates a peace that makes the ear inordinate for corporal release, of course focusing on the sound of a frog. And then in 1379, she'll say, his mansion in the pool the frog forsakes. He rises on a log and statements makes. His auditors 2 whirls deducting me. The orator of April is hoarse today, his mittens at his feet. No hand hath he, his eloquence a bubble, as fame should be. It's interesting, she uses the word fame there. Applaud him to discover to your chagrin, Demosthenes has vanished in waters green. Again, emphasizing the speech component of the frog. They're right, the croaking of the frog. How public, she says, it would be dreary to be like a frog, public, to tell one's name. And here again, taking us back to Odyssey 9, 4:10, right? Who are you? I'm nobody. To tell one's name the livelong tune to an admiring bog. When we get to poem 336, it'll be an admiring sky, to an admiring bog. And again, some has been made of this word bog. In 6 poems, she uses this idea of bog, something that's kind of trapped. In other words, note the irony here. She seems to suggest, I don't want to publish my stuff because I don't want to have that sense that I am stuck in a bog with all of the other frogs. Now, it's certainly, I think, one way to read this. When we get to poem 709, we'll come back to this poem one more time. She says it this way: publication is the auction of the mind of man, poverty, by justifying for so foul a thing. Possibly, but we would rather from our garret go, white under the white creator, than invest our snow. Thought belonged to him who gave it, then to him who bare. Its corporal illusion sell the royal air. In the parcel be the merchant of the heavenly grace, but reduce no human spirit to disgrace of price. If it's a disgrace in that poem, it's dreary, right? This idea, I don't want anyone to really know who I am and what I'm up to as a poet. And in some ways, I mean, I think this is interesting. There's a scholar who has said it this way. Robert Weisberg has said it this way. Quote, Dickinson, the simple desire for a private life contains the life principle of a protean ego, free to identify with its moving thoughts as they move forward. She forsakes the frog-like certainty of a public, somebody to become a being, voyaging in the hope of finally achieving the status of a somebody at the source. I like that this scholar uses the word voyaging and takes us again back to Odysseus. And as we said, we gave full lectures on the Odyssey at learnstrong.net. You can run them to ground. And remember that we said about Odysseus, he's always telling everybody that he's a nobody until he gets back home to Ithaca. And then when he tries to say who he is to Telemachus or to his father or his wife or whoever, Penelope, that nobody will believe it. It's quite an interesting irony. I think the 2A message here, though, is that it is hard to not feel respected. It's okay to not be respected, I think, is the point that she's making here. At 2B, I love the voice here. Notice it goes from this kind of meek, almost childlike voice to a certain kind of contempt that obviously is ironic. I cannot help at 3A but think about Keats' when I have fears that I may cease to be. Then he says, on the shore I stand alone and think till love and fame to nothingness do sink. Remember that he put on his tombstone, here lies one whose name was, writ in water, you'll recall. We've given full lectures on all of that. I like to think about Othello and Desdemona's last words in Othello 5:2. Nobody, I, myself, farewell. Certainly, Emily would have known that line. And then, of course, we can relate, as we've said already, Plato's dialogues as well as Homer's Odyssey 9 to this poem. Finally, at 3B, it's a funny way to ask the question, but are you a nobody, N-O-B-O-D-Y, or are you a nobody, K-N-O-W-B-O-D-Y? And how do you relate to the admiring bog? Is it possible that at the same time You kind of wish you could be a part of it sometimes, but you're really glad that you're not a somebody. Thank you.